On. Hello, and welcome to our Innovation Women Speak webinar series. My name is Bobby Carlton. I'm the founder of Innovation Women. Innovation Women is a visibility bureau for entrepreneurial, technical, and professional women. We are here to service the mission of eliminating the all male, all pale, and often all stale panels you see so often at industry conferences and events. We connect women with speaking opportunities, and we connect event managers with awesome speakers who just happen to be women. Innovation Women is so much more than a traditional speakers bureau. Event managers can search the database for free, and speakers pay just $100 a year to become a member. They get a profile on the platform and access to lists of speaking opportunities, as well as a number of other cool benefits. Here are just a few of the great features on Innovation Women. It's a way for speakers, consultants, workshop leaders, subject matter experts to get the visibility that drives businesses and career success. Our Kickstart cohort program will help you get the most out of your Innovation Women membership. Our team provides you with guidance to help you perfect your profile and understand how to work with our extensive list of speaking opportunities. The cohort structure offers you a built-in network for accountability and motivation. Every speaker needs a group of speaker friends, and our next cohort starts in September. You can learn more and register in the attachments and links tab. And for our webinar attendees, we have a special offer of 20% off your first year. Use the code IWWebinar, all caps and one word, for 20% off. Check it out at innovationwomen.com. And before we get started with today's presentation, I want to encourage you to register for our upcoming webinars. On August 24th, we are hosting a new edition of Ask an Event Manager with Carl Ford of Crossfire Media. Be on the lookout to register for this webinar on our website. And speaking of that attachments tab, this is an annotated version of your screen. Below the video viewing window, there are tabs. The default tab is Ask a Question. You can type in a question or a comment at any point during the program. The attachments tab is where you'll see documents and links from today's speaker and the link to sign up for future webinars. You can download the attachments at any time during the webinar and from the recording. The tab called Rate This helps us determine what you like. We read all the feedback. You can enlarge your screen to view it in full screen mode. And if at any time you need audio help or the screen freezes, try refreshing the page and feel free to click on the help button at the bottom of the screen. Today's webinar is being recorded, so if you'd like to view it again, you will be able to, and we will send you the link after the webinar. Now on to today's presentation. So today we have with us Renita Wolf. Renita is the founder of Wolf Partners. She helps founders and CEOs get investment ready and prepare their business for growth or exit. 8 out of 10 businesses will not sell or survive the founder's exit because the founder does not plan ahead. Wolf Partners has created a framework that helps founders prepare their business for a successful departure while working less and preparing the next generation to take over, ensuring that their business legacy endures. With more than 25 years of senior financial management experience with Fortune 50 and entrepreneurial company, Renita knows what it takes to improve company value and profitability. But she's also an avid collector of post-World War II modern art. Her obsession with art started with visits to museums and galleries where she met artists, learned about art, and developed her eye for art. She says she's the caretaker of her collection. She's combined her business expertise with her love of art, and she's learned to think like an artist and is excited to share her passion with you today. So I would love it if we can have a big round of applause virtually for Renita and have her take it away. Renita, over to you.
Thank you, Bobby. Before we get started, I want to ask everyone there are some attachments, and one of those is a worksheet. If you could download that, because I'm going to ask you some self reflective questions as we go through the presentation, and you may find that handy if you have a minute. Also included is a copy of the presentation. So if you see something you like and you'll have access to that, so you don't have to be taking crazy notes during the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. This is what my first question for you. And again, it's self-reflective. I'm not asking you to share in the chat or anything unless you want to. But do you make business decisions based on facts or emotions? Take just a moment to reflect on that. Well, many of us are familiar with the left brain versus right brain thinking. And as business people, we tend to be more logical. We like things to be planned and orderly. We focus on facts versus a right brain designated person who's maybe more emotional or creative or occasionally absent minded. I didn't like that because it sounded kind of negative, but it's also because they're so busy creating things and thinking of new things. And they also enjoy creative storytelling. But I would say that we are all both right brain and left brain, and we can use both of those attributes to help us be better business people. And to give you a little confidence, I want to remind you that all children are born artists. The challenge is to remain one as we grow up. I hear many people say, I'm not an artist. I don't know how to create anything. And I am not an artist myself. I could not draw even stick people. They don't look like what I intend. So I'm not an artist, but we have that attribute that exists within us. And art is more than just drawing and painting and doing things. It's using all of those skills that we have and natural attributes to be creative and be artist in the work that we do. I use the word artful thinking because I look at it like this in this Venn diagram. It's a combination of the business, arts, and our community. And it's where they all intersect, in my mind, is what I defined as artful thinking. And a little bit of history on that. It's not a new concept. In fact, there's a book, it's by Franz Johansson, The Medici Effect. And he talks about how during the Renaissance in Florence, Italy, 15th century, the Medici family, they were bankers and investors and business people, and they took their money and they brought in people from different areas of expertise. They brought business people, artists, sculptors, storytellers, and they brought them together to create something great because they fortunately had the financial resources to do that. And as a result, the Renaissance happened. So that's an example, a great example of how business was used to combine the arts and create community and lead to this thing. As again, I've called it artful thinking. This is also where the ideas of the business arts and communities, it offers excellent insights. It creates a framework to solve problems, looking at bringing all of these things together into our way of thinking. So to provide some structure, because I am at my base, my career as a business person, we are going to use a strategy and we're going to look at these four areas: innovation, problem solving, team building, and communication. We'll go into depth in a little bit more. So recently, Forbes asked members of their business leadership councils what were their top challenges. And these senior business leaders identified 5 types of challenges that they face. They include generating revenue, time constraints, leadership, growth, strategy, and marketing. And I know as business leaders, you may face many of these same challenges, whether you work as an executive or own your own company. You always need to make money, manage your time, lead your employees, and grow your company and market your work. So creative thinking can help you tackle these challenges in your business. So in addition to having some fun, you'll walk away with some tactics that you can use in your business, being more creative. So here's the next question for you to think about. Have you adapted your leadership style in response to recent global changes and uncertainties? And that's a yes/no question. And if you have, what are some of the things that you've done? Have you been intentional about making changes in how you're leading your organization? Okay. So let's jump right into the first strategy of innovation. Sorry. Hang on just a second. There we go. I refer to this as the white space of opportunity. The arts help stimulate innovation by initiating new thinking patterns and different ways of thinking or looking at complex problems. They also provide an opportunity for kaleidoscope thinking. And each time you shift the lens of your perspective, you gain new insights and new opportunities for innovations. So, this white space of opportunities in practice creates room for speed and simplicity. That's how I like to use my white space of opportunities. Visual artists, let's turn this into art and how artists start looking at this white space. It's an empty canvas. If it's a visual artist, they start with a blank canvas. And in business, the blank canvas is a metaphor for discovering these white spaces of opportunities. This helps us shift from problem-solving model to be artful creators, and also to decode and cope with chaos, complexity, and ambiguity. Everything's not black and white in this space. We develop whole brain thinking skills, again, left brain, right brain combinations, and it allows us to create a compelling vision for the future. So as I mentioned earlier, these 18% of the Forbes Council members noted growth and strategy issues as their greatest challenge. And these concerns related to scaling and expanding their existing businesses, including the strategic evolution of the company's mission, function, and policies. Some specific concerns that they had were scaling their business, organic growth, long-term strategy, and evolving and adapting their organization. And again, innovation is one way to ensure growth. So how can we learn to innovate? In today's business environment, it's vital to change and evolve the cadence of innovation. We have to do things faster. So therefore, the business must change faster in order to succeed, and change has to accelerate for us to continue to succeed. Big companies struggle with the necessity of accelerating change, creating a culture of continuous innovation and allowing teams to fail fast. So these are challenges that exist. For smaller companies, they also face challenges. These more agile startups innovate quickly, but they may miss the deep consumer or customer insights as the core foundation of big ideas. So we do need to learn to innovate. So what we need is a productive blend of discipline and speed, openness and process in companies of all size. And as business leaders, again, we must learn to innovate. So another question for you: what can you do to build your innovation skills? Anything come to mind? You may not ask, well, where do I even start? So I have a few suggestions for you. First, be enduring students. Always be learning something new and adapt and develop new skills. Put yourself into uncomfortable situations so that you're always learning something new. You're uncomfortable. That eventually gives you the satisfaction of accomplishment. Also, absorb new media. Read, study things that are not in your normal daily media outlets, for example, and experience new things, be with new people. I find travel is one of those great things to kind of take you out of your environment and help you think a little bit different. So, what can you do to create the innovative organization of the future? So, here are a few suggestions from the Forbes Council members. So, be obsessed with people. And I'm going to give the example, all of us are probably familiar with Amazon. They're obsessed with people. They seem to know what I need before I need it. And they make suggestions for me. So what they've done is they've observed my patterns and make suggestions that are personal to me. So they're obsessed with people. Offer friction-free experiences. I think Amazon is another good example in this area. I tend to go there. I will go there first because it's so easy. First, I know how to use the tool or the website. My card is already loaded in, so I don't even have to pull out my credit card to load in information. And if there's things that I've looked at before and I'm still thinking about or maybe interested in, I can add them to my list and go back later and just pull them out and put them in my cart and move on. So I think Amazon illustrates this in an excellent way. And gift choices, I've already talked about that. There's a gazillion choices on Amazon. So if you're looking for something, you can find it, and probably in some situations, too many choices. I always look at reviews if it's something that's a larger purchase or if it's something I'm not sure if it's just hype that it would work or not. I always look at the recommendations and see what people's experiences are. So they give us lots of choices. And then fourth, let people and brands tell their stories. This is what helps companies and individuals build trust with their customers and their clients and with one another, and just explain themselves and share what motivates them and what their passions are and their why. You've heard a lot of books recently on whys and storytelling, and this fits right in with this. So these are some suggestions as to how to expand your abilities to innovate. So let's move on to the next strategy. And in our limited time, obviously, I'm not going to be able to take a super deep dive on everything, but hopefully it gets you thinking of other avenues that you could follow and find resources, but I will offer some in a little bit. So problem solving, this is strive and thrive, write your own story of success. If you're facing a situation that needs to be fixed or you want to change, let's delve right into how art can help us better at problem solving. One of the ways it does, it makes us think different. If you look at a piece of art and if you let your mind kind of flow with the why did the artist create it? What was their motivation? What's the story they're trying to tell? Why do I like it? Why do I not like it? And those types of questions, it really gets you thinking. So looking at art awakens these dormant powers of observation. It helps you to see more of what's right in front of you, and it sharpens your interpretation skills. It makes you stop and look at what's unique and different right there in front of you. And these skills help you be a better and more confident decision making in complex and ambiguous times. And also, looking at art expands your understanding of all forms of diversity. As I said, there'll be things in art that you like, you don't like, and just start to think of why your kind of your main brain is going that way and why you're thinking that. And also, different art forms can increase trust, respect, and communication across cultures. And it's a personal value that I have is there may be art that I don't like, but I'm never critical of art because I understand that it's an expression of someone's internal dialogue, their story, their passion, and I respect that because it comes from another person. So that increases diversity, and all of these help improve problem solving and leads to better solutions. So one of the things I've talked a little bit about already, but I wanted to talk about when I go to a art gallery or a museum, to get me more engaged with the art that's in place, one of the things I do is when I'm looking around and observing everything, rather than just looking and going, oh, that's nice, oh, that's kind of weird. Before I leave, I will always give this little exercise to myself in my head. Which one do I like and would want to take home if I could? And second, why would I want to do that? So, what made me reach that conclusion? That's not meaning that I do take it home, because many of those things are very, very expensive, but or not for sale. But asking that question helps you also learn yourself, get to know yourself a little bit better, and then also about your taste in art, what you like and what you don't like. So again, I want to give you some tactical skills using left brain, right brain. So what can you do to become a better problem solver? Well, I have a report. Albert Einstein reportedly said that if he had an hour to solve a problem, he'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. So it's really good to follow a process of not jump immediately into a solution. So I'll offer you some suggestions here is follow a process. Have something that you go through, a drill that helps keep you focused. This is something that I use just because going through the steps helps to keep me focused on what's important and what I want to think about. So for example, I have a 6 steps to problem solving process. The first one is to identify the problem. Whether you're dealing with a complex problem or a relatively simple one, it's vital that you have a clear understanding of what it is you're hoping to solve. And if you're trying to tackle a number of problems, even if they're relatively simple problems, the task becomes much harder. So that's why it's most important to first identify the problem. Maybe it will simply be symptoms that you're looking at and not the problem. And do your research. So you've got the problem identified, and before you start to come up with solutions, look for after you go on a fact finding and research regarding the nature and the possible causes of the problem. How did it initiate? What were the core reasons that this thing came to light, and now that it's a problem? And it includes looking into problems of similar problems that you've resolved in the past, or it may require uh, devising an interview questions to ask those involved in the issue so that you make sure you have all the information you need. Third, look for possible solutions. Come up with more than one. I always have a plan A, B, and C when I'm looking at things, and you can do that with problem solving. This may appear to be the best solution, and this may be the next, but having those lined up and then reviewing those with other people later, make sure you end up on the right solution. Make a decision. Eventually, you have to pick one, make a decision, and move ahead. And then put that decision into action, implement it, and then await the results. Give it a little bit of time to work. And if it doesn't, you've heard that saying, fail fast, come at it again and rework the problem, go through the process again. And be creative. Look for possible solutions. After researching the problem, it's time to put on your artful thinking cap and start thinking about possible solutions. Look outside your normal realm of experiences. This stage requires creativity and brainstorming as you think of new ideal solutions and some alternative solutions should your first set of solutions fail. Solving problems usually involves creating more contingency plans to contain further problems. So, as I said, there's always an A, B, and C problem or solution sitting out there. So, the next strategy is build a resilient team. I know during COVID, this got a lot of attention and continues to, as we've all heard about the Great Resignation. So, making sure that our team is good and they feel good and enjoy the work that they're doing. So let's go back here. So how can art help build a resilient team? Art facilitates collaboration and accelerates the ability to get to the heart of the problem. Art can also build a strong team. For example, drawing or painting images illustrates how differently you see things. So if you had somebody in your group draw a mountain with snow on it, for everybody who's on your team, you'd probably get a different view of what that mountain looks like and what that snow looks like, for example. So that way it visually, that's an exercise you could do with your team. It illustrates how different people see different things in different ways. So it really um, shows how we can work together better as a team and impacts how we look at things differently and lets people understand better other members of the team. So imagine what would happen if you ask each member of your team to draw a house, as I indicated. I talked about the mountain, but a house too. That would even have more differences of what people's houses would look like. So, to be a successful business leader, you must know how to build teams and lead people, and you must cultivate team resiliency. I want to talk a little bit about art. As a collector, I was asked a question once, which really took me by surprise. It was the question someone asked was, how do I talk to an artist? What do I say to an artist? Because many people are, if they're not an artist or don't know artists, they're a little bit intimidated by the whole subject. And I would say first, artists are people just like the rest of us. And I found that most artists are thrilled when people appreciate and respect their work. And if you go in with that approach and then start asking questions like what's your background? How did you get into art? And when did you start creating art like this? And what kind of motivates you to create art. And then all you have to do is stand back and listen because artists love to share what it is they do and why they do it and how they learn to do it. And it also helps you appreciate their work. They're just like the rest of us. We like it when people notice us and pay attention to what it is we're doing. So, going back to the business side from the Forbes Leadership Council, from building a team and shaping employee skills to getting stakeholder buy-in and honing the company culture, leading a team is always a challenge. 19% of the Forbes Council members and said leadership issues were their greatest challenges. A few specifics they cited were finding genuine and passionate people for their team, administering in a small business setting, maybe they don't have enough resources and people have to kind of pitch in and do different things at different times. Managing a global team, maybe everybody's not in the same place or they're even in different countries with different cultures and different languages. I've worked on teams like that before and they can be challenging, but I also know that they're also a lot of fun and it's one of my jobs in my career that I've enjoyed the most. And then balancing employee appreciation with what is best for business and finding ways for senior leaders to build enough self-awareness to work on themselves. You may know of people who you ask them if they're a good leader and they would say yes, and you're like, oh, maybe not so much. So that's what that's referring to. We all need to make sure we're self-aware and develop that skill. So here's another question. Who's on your team? And I'm not talking directly about the team that works for you or that you work for, but those people and also other people that support you in the work that you do and in your career. So describe the team of people you go to when you're faced with an important business decision. And then why did you choose to have these people on your team? They probably have certain skills and attributes and abilities. So, how can you help build a resilient team? Team resiliency must be carefully cultivated by the leader. Resilient teams are more likely to stay motivated and resolve problems more effectively and quickly with little recovery time. They are important for business and require careful, deliberate cultivation by leadership. This is where they have to feel safe to fail fast and come up with the next solution. We talked a little bit about that earlier. So let me give you 4 tips for building a resilient team. Set clear goals. It's important that team members understand their and other members of the team's roles, responsibilities, and interactions. And being familiar with one another's knowledge, skills, and preferences. In short, everyone on the team needs to be on the same page. Set clear roles for each member and how they are to work together. Establish clear goals and formal processes, not only for achieving the goal, but also for handling adverse situations which are bound to arise. So let me stress again, set clear roles. I may have said goals just out of habit, but roles meaning everyone knows what they should be doing and when they should be doing it and why it's important that they do it and how they work with other members of the team. Develop trust. People who trust one another feel safe, and leaders put safety first. Psychological safety is to the extent to which a team feels safe for interpersonal risk taking. Interpersonal risk include offering unusual or creative ideas without fear of being criticized or ostracized by other members. You can build this by being inclusive and accessible, asking for input, and encouraging different perspectives. Encouraging your team to take risk in a safe environment with mutual trust and respect, along with a no idea is a bad idea attitude, will go a long way to strengthen the team's resilience, boost their confidence, create an atmosphere of respect, and creative collaboration. Third, find the silver lining. We've talked a little bit about it. Some things don't always work out. So that's the fail quickly and move on to the next thing. So find the silver lining if something doesn't quite work out as we had planned. During an adverse event, find the opportunity in the challenge. Lead from the front and have your team's back. This is not the time to be looking for faults and who caused it and why did it happen and trying to blame people. Make sure to remind your team that they have the resilience to get through the crisis and that you trust them to do so. And I would imagine that many of you, as leaders and business owners, saw that during the pandemic as business was shut down and really learning who was on your team and how you could be creative to come up with new solutions and new ways of managing difficult circumstances. Also, employ a growth mindset by reframing the setbacks as opportunities and encouraging new ideas and strong collaborations. And this isn't to say that everything has to be positive and Pollyanna about solutions, but it's look for opportunities rather than sitting there saying, okay, this didn't work out. What are we going to do next? That's really how you should approach it and what I would recommend. And sometimes it's hard to get into that mindset. Make sure to provide your team with everything they need to move forward with a clear direction. So you need to be present. So when faced with change, focus on helping and relieve the anxiety within your team. That's another thing that happens. Even if people aren't expressing it, you know that it exists. You may even be feeling it yourself. Be sure to clearly answer these questions. These are things that are going through their head. So make sure you're addressing them, even if they don't say them out loud. So purpose. Why are we making the change and what is the rationale? Second, picture. What is the end state we're trying to get to? So what's the vision? Why is this important? Plan. What are the steps we need to take to get there? And the part, what is my role, the employee's role in the change and how can I help? So this is really where bringing your team together and working together to answer these questions. Even if they go unasked, make sure that you have solutions and that it's clear to people what it is the answers are. Because if these questions aren't answered, people will be coming up with their own answers. And this really can create a vacuum of uncertainty, which makes the situation worse. Cultivate the win or learn model. We've talked a little bit about this already, but after an adverse event, use the win or learn model, debrief. Have team members should be comfortable enough speaking up and raising any concerns, as well as celebrating their wins. Even if they were those micro wins, you need to recognize those because I'm sure some good things happened in the process. As a leader, you can create an atmosphere where this is encouraged and expected and allow for healthy exchange of ideas around better ways of doing things in the future. The fourth strategy is communication, breaking down the glass wall. The glass wall is refers to something being incomprehensible, oblique, intimidating. There is a glass wall that separates art and art authorities from non-art goers. The statistic is that only I can't remember the statistic, but very, very few people visit galleries, go to museums, or attend live performance. It's less than 10% of people do that. And the reason that they don't do it is because they think it's something that is different than them, something they wouldn't be comfortable doing because it's the unknown. And this term, the glass wall, is actually used to describe that. It's not something that I made up. It's referred to as the glass wall of, and it's intimidating. And as I said earlier, every one of us has the ability to be touched by art. I'm sure you've looked at something that you saw or heard a song or saw a play or something that has impacted you. So don't let that glass wall keep you away. And also, let us not neglect our artistic gift as we become adults. Remember that quote earlier, we are all born artists, and we still have that in us. It may be dormant, but we can bring it out. Uh, one Some larger cities offer what's referred to as create. If you're looking for something to bring art and make it more concrete for you and your organization, these organizations offer trainings that are referred to as creativity at work classes. They include activities that promote observing, listening, questioning, and responding to enhance team and one-on-one communication with your team and clients. It increased awareness and understanding of both verbal and nonverbal means of communication can positively impact your team and overall company performance. So, if you live in a larger city, look for these. Just Google it out there on the internet, and you may find some creativity at work classes in your area. So, be transparent with your consumer base and employees, and it's critical for business leaders to, in our own right, break down any glass walls that maybe we've created. People may be a bit intimidated working with us or coming to us with suggestions. So, as I said earlier, I love art. I collect art. So, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about art because you can tell it's my passion. And I mentioned earlier that for many people who aren't familiar, it can be intimidating. And I also want to say it again, I am not an artist. I could not paint, draw, play an instrument, be an actor, but I enjoy it and I consume those benefits of art. But something that I hear, you may have heard this. People will walk into a gallery or a museum and they may say, look at something and go, oh, my 4-year-old could create that. Particularly if we're looking at abstract modern art, they look at it and it looks so simple and easy. And I have to tell you, it's not. And I'll give you an example. Some of you may be familiar with Jackson Pollock. He's known as an action painter. He does abstract expressionist type paintings. And one of the things he did were they're referred to as drip paintings. So he would literally take buckets of paint on these huge canvases, go out to his studio and maybe be elevated over the painting and just flip paint onto the canvas. And you go, well, I could do that. And as I said before, it looks a lot easier and simple than it is. Jackson Pollock, he was a student of Thomas Hart Benton. Thomas Hart Benton was a prior generation artist, and his specialty was realism. And this type of art became prominent during the Depression. It's when farms were failing, people were leaving their homes, and Thomas Hart Benton painted scenes of farms and houses and people leaving farms and land. So I'm trying to paint. So if you're not familiar with his work, you may have an idea of what he did, but it's a kind of the Depression artist. Well, he taught Jackson Pollock at the Art Institute of New York. So he was a student. Pollock was a student. He learned the basics, the fundamentals of how to draw, how to mix paint, how to communicate using art. And then he took it and did his own thing with it, which he became very famous for doing that. So again, Jackson Pollock, abstract expressionist. Thomas Hart Benton, more of a regionalist painting is his type of art. So different types of art, but still great, famous artist of our time. So back to business. To bring in all important revenue, you have to be seen. Your company has to be seen. So marketing is important. In an ideal world, doing good work should automatically create attention, but we all know that it doesn't. So because in our information overloaded society, even the best causes, products, and services have to continuously seek new ways to stand out and to be seen. And again, 17% of the Forbes Council members were concerned about getting the word out, attracting attention, and creating exposure for themselves and their companies and their brands. And these were their challenges: visibility, adequately communicating the mission and work, getting the word out about what services they offer, being heard above the noise in the virtual space. Many of you may have experienced those types of things, getting the right exposure, and then marketing and communication on a tight budget. So again, being creative, looking at things, both using our left and right brains, can maybe help address some of these challenges that you may be facing in your own business. So I wanted to ask you, over the past year or couple of years, what changes have you made to improve communication with your customers? What things have you done different? And again, it's self-reflective, so only you will see the answers on your worksheet. But I would imagine you've made some. So as we stated earlier, I put this picture of the glass wall up there to remind us that we always need to be transparent and open with our customers. That helps to build trust and respect, and people who trust and respect you will be more likely to buy from you. And then also listen. I have to say, in my experience, listening is probably one of the least appreciated skills that we can bring. There's so much noise, people pushing out messages and people talking, and no one's listening. And I think it could be also, it's important to do that because you need to know what people are thinking and feeling, but also it could be a great differentiator for us as business leaders in the work that we do. So listen. So we've talked about a few things, and you probably came up with some ideas of your own, but what actions will you take now to think like an artist and to be a better leader? So here's some contact information if you're interested in that. It's also included in the download, the presentation attachment as well. So back to you, Bobby.
That was very cool. And I have to say, I totally identify with your statement about going into look at art and saying, that's cool. That's weird. That's totally me when I'm getting into looking at art. So, all right, folks, back over to you. If you have a question or a comment about today's presentation, definitely drop it into the Ask a Question tab. This is your opportunity to uh, put that burning question you have, or definitely if you are interested in making a comment, share it. We also have some questions in there already. So our first one is, you mentioned in your opening that you are an avid art collector. How do you get started being an art collector?
Well, fortunately, it's an interest that both my husband and I share. And it was kind of by accident. I would do business travel, go to galleries and museums, as was mentioned in the introduction. And then I said, oh, as I mentioned also earlier, I would go in and say, which one would I take home if I could? And obviously, you can't bring anything home from the museum. And many galleries are very expensive. So, which ones would I pick? So, first, I developed my eye for art, but then I wanted to own some. So I started searching out what I was more in the level that I could afford to build my collection around. And I would say early on, and this is pretty typical of a lot of collectors, we start with things that are attractive to us. And generally, that's impressionist type paintings. They're pretty flowers, pretty people, pretty scenes. And that's really normal because most people can relate to that. You don't have to interpret some crazy looking something, like you said, something that looks a little weird. But then it begins to evolve. You get a little bit more of a sophisticated appetite for it because you want something that maybe makes you think a little bit more. You just don't want to look at it and go, oh, it's all pretty much it's representational. It's interpreted for me. I like it. It's pretty. But then you're like, no, I want something that challenges my brain a little bit more. So that's how we moved into more of the modernist uh, type art that we collect. But I will tell people, people are saying, well, I could never be a collector. One of the things we say is we collect art of primarily deceased artists because, as you mentioned, post World War II. And what's something many people don't know is most regions, particularly United States, I'm not familiar with outside the United States, but in the United States, many regions have art colonies or art groups that were here in the 30s and the 50s and the 60s, and some of them continue today. And the reason that happened, there were a couple things going on back then. First, during the Depression, I mentioned Thomas Hart Benton and the regionalism. Well, that's also the time when the WPA, the World's Progress Administration, it was a federal government program to get people back to work. So they also engaged artists to paint. So that's how that regionalist started. So wherever people were, government money was coming in and helping them support their families and things, their lifestyle. And then after World War II, and so this is the area that we focus on because we like the more abstract, different types of art, is as people came back from World War II, the GI Bill was in place. So a lot of people who were artists, started colonies to teach people to be artists. And I live in Colorado, so there were a couple of colonies related. One that we really like is in Taos, New Mexico. We go there and we collect artists from that. So I find, going back to the original question, how do you get started? You kind of evolve, and then you say, I want to do it. And how do I do it? Well, start right where you're at in your region and learn who is prevalent in your area and what you like there as well.
All right.
I will give one really important part is you should only I'm going to give you two rules. These are the rules. Only buy what you like, because you may have it for a long time and there may be other people who don't like it as much as you do, so you may never be able to get rid of it. And second, don't look at it as an investment. We hear these stories of auctions and multi-million-dollar paintings going for sale. Well, there's reasons for that, and I won't go into that. It's really a business investment. So don't look at it as an investment. You should only buy what you like and you love and you want to have for a long time and that you enjoy. That's all.
Based on your conversation about the investment aspect, I mean, do you have a love-hate relationship with things like Antique Roadshow?
I love it. The thing is, my husband and I think they're showing reruns now. Anyway, we haven't watched it for a while, but we would see things and we would know the artist. And my husband would, because we study it so much and do research, he would know that would go between this and this for this artist. So we like that part of it. And the funny
Ah,
part is, he particularly recognized the artist and knows what the market value would be.
nice. Very nice. All right. Artful thinking. You
Yes.
mentioned it during your presentation. Additional resources, where can people go to learn more?
Okay. Well, there's that's if you link back to I gave it earlier the link back to uh, the art link that I gave. You can get a download there,
Okay.
and I'll share a little bit. So that resource is available to you, but I want to share something if you don't want to sign up for the document. But one of our favorite shows is these are videos. These are like public documentary type videos. It's called Herb and Dorothy. And these were two people who were, I don't, some of you may have heard of it, but they were husband and wife who lived in New York City and collected art. They didn't have children. He was a postal worker. She was a librarian. They didn't have a lot of resources. They lived in a tiny little apartment, probably in Brooklyn. They collected during the late 60s, early 70s, when now people have name recognition. These are people you would know. And they amassed this collection that was, I think it took 15, 18 wheeler semis to eventually clean out their apartment. And they were specific. They wanted it to be donated to a museum that would not sell it, because some museums do sell to raise money. And so it went to the Smithsonian. And then as part of that divestiture of art, they sent two paintings to each state to a museum that hadn't been identified where their art collection go. And that's a really fun one to watch. So I recommend that. And there's also a TED Talk out there that says taking imagination seriously. Many people don't, like as I said, we've talked a lot this morning about right brain, left brain thinking, and this is really important. So look for that TED Talk by Janet Erkman, taking imagination seriously. And there's also lots of other things out there on that document if people want to look at it.
Great. Okay. And you also mentioned creativity at work classes. That sounds like a great team building activity. Can you tell us some more about that?
Yes, and I want to clarify, there's a lot of businesses around towns, and I think probably most every town has them, where you go with your girlfriends and you have some wine and you paint a painting. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, we're actually, there's a business purpose and an intent other than just having fun, but using it as a business tool. And these creativity at art classes or work classes focus on those types of things. Unfortunately, a lot of towns or cities don't offer this type of a service. And I think it would be a great business for somebody, not myself, but for somebody, because it would be so easy if so. In the audience, I would imagine we have people who are really interested in business and creativity. Create your own uh, creativity at work classes. Maybe this would be so much fun. I that I would like to do it someday. Is start with what it is your intent is, what you want to do, and what you want to accomplish. Find somebody who can help you structure that from a business point. So it may be someone in HR, or that type of a person where you're wanting people to learn to do something better, and then find an artist who can come in and collaborate, working together and put something together for that's totally creative and unique to your organization. And that would not be hard to do. People say, well, I don't know any artists. Well, I bet you know people who do know artists. And there's a lot of artists out there that aren't doing $100,000 paintings. There may be people who are doing animal paintings. I know I have a painting that I commissioned of my dog that are really good artists and would love to do something like this. So create your own if there's nothing that exists in your area.
All right. So go out, find your own artists, create your own creativity.
Yes.
Okay. So, any last tips for our audience today?
um, well, I hope people start with a museum where you feel comfortable. You can just go look, but get out there. I have so much passion for it that I'm sad for people who don't get out there. And then I would also say everyone should have original art in their homes, and it is affordable, even if you find it at a farmer's market or a flea market or wherever. Have original art because first, it's original, it's unique, it's something that's just special for you. And second, you're helping out an artist. So versus going to a retailer and just buying a poster or something, putting up. So those two things,
Great
Bobby.
advice. All right. Great advice. Support your local artists. And thank you as well, Renita. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today we are sponsored by Lioness Magazine and My Speaker Leads. If you are interested in more speaking opportunities, definitely check out My Speaker Leads. And Lioness Magazine is the go to news and information resource for everything related to female entrepreneurship. And also, again, if you are interested in more speaking engagements for yourself, don't forget to use the code IWWebinar, all one word, to sign up for 20% off your first year membership at Innovation Women. And remember, give us feedback on today's presentation. What did you think? Click on the rate this button and tell us everything. We read all of your feedback. Have a great rest of your day, folks. Have a good day and take care. And thank you again, Renita.
Thank you.